Hi, and welcome to the Brohoyo podcast, the podcast about Gacha in general and Hoyoverse games in specific. I'm your host, Steven, and this is my co host, David.
Hey everyone.
This week, we're going to discuss developer live streams and community outreach. And Dave, I'm going to just toss it over to you immediately and let you kind of run with this one.
Yeah, so this week, we've been seeing a lot of notifications for, live streams coming out or the anniversary live streams or developer live streams and whatnot. And it just kind of got me thinking about like how impactful are these in the community? What are maybe our personal opinions on what draws us to the screen to watch them, or are we just maybe trying to skip through the highlights and just like skip to the parts with those promo codes type things? And so, in terms of the live stream, I guess to open up the line of questioning, what is kind of your preferred delivery method for live streams? Because we see different developers take different approaches. So we have, Hoyoverse will get the characters and their voice actors and kind of host in that way in an animated way, and the
Mhm.
voice actors as their characters, on screen are the ones giving the live stream. Other developers, actually the developers themselves, make on-screen appearances and talk about the upcoming features and events and such. So is there a preference for you, Steve, that maybe will get you to watch more likely than the other one, or is it kind of just I'll watch whatever or whatever it is?
So, I think for me, it's a question of tone more than delivery. Um, One of the big takeaways I got from the early Genshin live streams is that I would rather they have a sense of fun with the live streams rather than a more State of the Union delivering to shareholder style delivery. So in that sense, I think getting the characters in or doing the more animated skit style live streams works for me more. But if the dev team has appropriate sense of humor, appropriate ability to sell the product, for lack of a better term, I think that can work. Again, I think back to one of the early Genshin live streams where they had the Barbara dev, who was that skit and things like that, versus the more dry Dawe sitting there and talking with a developer and them just kind of doing a very basic interview. Again, part of it is that you have to read that subbed, so whatever charisma might be there, it doesn't quite translate as well. But I think for general release, going with the more animated style of like Honkai Star Rail, where they do bring in the voice actors playing the roles of their characters, delivering the information in a sort of in-universe way, plays better with me. But I do know that like Brown Dust 2, I believe the developers will present on that one, and they have a fairly jovial tone and they have fun with it. So yeah, I would say probably tone is more important to me than the cruft of how it's delivered. But what about you?
Yeah, I liked how you kind of framed the rather than a State of the Union addressing shareholders, we're having fun with it and addressing the player base,
Mhm.
right, in a fun, energetic way. So I think the tone does play a lot into that, and I do think that for the most part, having characters themselves from in universe be the ones presenting it tend to lean more towards that aspect. Not saying that devs can't. You referenced Brown Dust 2 in their recent live stream. They definitely had some fun with things and are very self-aware about their type of game and their audience. In terms of the merchandise they were, holding up and selling, and then also I think dressing up in some capacity in wigs and things like that. So it was fun to kind of see that side of the developer. So it's not that it can't be done with developers. It's just that it's usually better done with characters in game. So um, to that effect, like something like with Nikkei Goddess of Victory for their live streams, they will have kind of the main trio host. So that would be Anise, Neon, and Rapi be hosting, and then there will be a section where they will jump to the developers, and you'll have the panel of the 5 or 6 developers who are all heads of various aspects, whether it be character and enemy design, the music composer, the head lead developer, etc. So they kind of balance the state of the union versus the fun. So, but for me, yeah, I like to see the characters and them kind of expressing exciting new content, but within their own character personalities that they have. So that's the bigger draw to me. But I can appreciate when a developer really leans into the for fun uh, avenue.
Yeah, and I think part of it is what's the purpose of the live stream? In a lot of cases, and maybe I apologize if I take us off track here. I know that you probably had a list of things that we were planning to go over, but I'm stealing the show. But at the end of the day, what is the purpose of the live stream? Is it there to be a marketing tool, or is it there to talk to something else? Like, is it there to inform in some other way? And I feel like primarily, at least most of the developer live streams that I see are more about marketing and sort of bringing players up to date as to what's going on, more so than a more dry business aspect. Like, we're not shareholders. Your player base aren't shareholders. We don't necessarily care about the same things that other groups might care about, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm describing it well, but
Well, it's essential, like kind of a roadmap. Like
yeah.
that's the idea behind most of these live streams we see is a roadmap for the player base, for the community to know what's in store in terms of maybe new features within the game, new characters, story event quests, events, and as such. Um, and then you have your anniversary streams, which have that extra element of it being a yearly or a half anniversary type thing.
Mhm.
And I think those are predominantly what we've seen live streams used for. I think in very rare occasions we've seen them for other things, but that was in cases of emergency where like developers messed up and needed to get in front of the camera to kind of have like an apology live stream, as it were, type thing. And for that, I think back, I think Snowbreak had one of those when they were there was an issue, I think, with some drama that occurred. I'm trying to
Yeah.
think of other ones offhand that did that. We don't see it much, where it's a standalone type like that. Sometimes they'll tie things in like, hey, we messed up here. Moving forward, this is what we're gonna do to correct it, and they'll tie it into the big live
Mhm.
stream. But I think like that rare standalone one is it's happened the once, I think, with Snowbreak and maybe one other time that I'm forgetting. Maybe you have any examples of that or
No, I just and I apologize again. We kind of just jumped into the topic, and now my brain is rolling on it. But I guess part of it is I feel like developer live streams are something that's somewhat unique in Western gaming, especially with like live services, because the main games I can think of that do it are obviously live service titles. But you get it with Overwatch, you get it with Riot, they'll do it, or Blizzard will do it, Riot will do it. But like for a lot of, I don't know, I don't think Fortnite or anything, they don't do developer live streams, do they?
I don't believe so, but I'll be honest, I am so far removed from the Fortnite sphere and community. That is a game I was never really into, so I can't speak to that. But I don't believe so.
I'm actually going to Google it just real quick, just to see.
But while you Google, I'll fill. But yeah, the in the West, it's more the live service games you mentioned, Blizzard. So like with Diablo 4, they had their fireside talks back when the original Overwatch was out, and Jeff Kaplan was still a member of the team there. He, I know, would uh, make his videos, and I guess that's the other thing too. With some of these live streams, we talk about live streams, but they're actually pre-recorded
Mhm.
as opposed to actual live streams. And I think within Gacha games, we are actually getting the live stream for a lot of these types. Now, we'll get pre-recorded ones, in instances like, let's say, Genshin, because maybe they do have the live stream, and then for the English broadcast, it has to be pre-recorded because we are bringing in characters and voices. But any luck on Fortnite with streams for
So
there?
yeah, I wasn't able to find anything on the first page of Google, which means that it doesn't exist. That's what I'm going with. That's what I'm sticking with. At least I'm unaware of it. Again, we both are apparently not. We're not hip to the
Well, even within
to
that
that.
genre game, that was never my arena battler squad base for me. It was Apex Legends was my go-to for that particular genre. I tried Fortnite, tried PUBG, but Apex Legends is what stuck for me, and then I've eventually moved off of that as gaming schedules have changed in life.
Yeah, but anyways, I just again, it was sort of one while sitting here and discussing it, I sort of realized that their Gacha is really where I typically see the dev live stream. You know, these sort of regular events that in other genres just not quite as common. You know, even with MMOs and so on. So
And then, and kind of to steal the conversation back
yeah.
from you and a bunny, and going even further down the bunny hole. Um, I'm sure we'll go down more bunny trails eventually, Alice. But for now, we'll bring it back and right the ship. As far as like actually watching the live stream, is there a particular, like for Hoyoverse games, are you sitting there and watching the entire live stream? Are you skipping to the gameplay features aspects? Are you just skimming through for those codes? What's your approach on the live streams? Or if not Hoyoverse watching the full ones, are there any live streams that you watch in its entirety?
So for the Hoyoverse ones, I actually skip the codes because I get them through other sources, typically ahead of time, anyways. Because as soon as they go live, it's they get posted everywhere. So I just grab them, toss them in, and usually they have them up for like 5 minutes. They have them up for a significant chunk of time, and so I'll just skip through it because I'm like, I don't need this. Try and cut down on the chaff there. Um, Most of
And
the
then we
time,
throw them up in our Discord that you all can join and get
yes,
those as well.
yeah, I do try and grab
Shameless
them.
plug.
Yeah, yeah, we do try and toss them up there when we get a hold of them, as well as any other codes that might pop up. Especially as new versions are coming out, you'll see more for each game. But anyways, yeah, as far as like the actual content itself, primarily I tend to skip over story reveals, because I want to experience the story in game. I'm not necessarily looking for primers. Um, I will be honest. That next week we're doing 3.0, and I'm probably going to complain a little bit about some of that, where I feel like occasionally it seems like they use the dev live stream to also prop up their storytelling, where they don't.
Shocker, new content, and Steve's complaining. I don't know if that's a spoiler
Well,
or as much as just like it's understood.
yeah, but it's. I guess my big complaint here is that a lot of times it feels like what they'll do is they'll explain something in the live stream, but they won't do the work in the game or in the story to explain the concept. So it's just kind of assumed that you already know it because the writer knows it or they've already explained it through another channel. And that can be a little bit annoying and frustrating. But regardless, I still refuse to watch it because my
We'll dive
brain
more into
won't
that subject
dig into
next
it.
week.
Um,
For examples and such. So we'll put a pin in that one.
yeah, that one's a pin in that. But so I'll skip over that. I am somewhat interested in mechanics. I will say that specifically Hoyoverse, because they don't put numbers on the screen when they show mechanics, it's difficult to actually tell a lot of times what the character is doing, like how valuable something is in a character's kit. I'm going to again circle back to Deha,
Mhm.
where she looks really cool in the way that they're obviously trying to sell you the character, but if you saw the numbers popping off, you'd be way less interested in her. You know, she's fine. She's a fine character, but yeah, she was definitely underwhelming, and they do little
They show
things
a
like
lot of sizzle. They don't show too much steak. Is that
yeah, lots of sizzle, not a lot of steak. So again, I tend to go through other channels in order to get reviews of characters ahead of time. Um, but yeah, that's sort of my take. That tends to be what I'm interested in. The events section are also one that I tend to skim through. But what about you?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I would say if I am invested in the story, I'm going to be watching the live stream in its entirety. So games like Genshin Impact, games like Honkai Star Rail, games like Nikkei Goddess of Victory, I tend to watch the live stream in its entirety, especially if there's like the character type co-host
Mhm.
situation, right? Because then it's just these characters that we're attached to because of the story, showing off more of their personality and whatnot within these live streams. So I'm just more inclined to watch those. But games that I'm not playing that for the story, like I'm skipping the story just to get back to the gameplay because I enjoy the gameplay or whatever it is that I'm enjoying about the game, right? I tend to not watch the entirety of those. I may watch like 10 or 15-minute chunks just to get an idea of kind of what's going on, but I'm skipping through to like the main stuff, like what are the features that are coming, what are the new characters, but I'm not, and then I'll pause and like maybe read up on it or read it or watch maybe like a Cliff Notes video or a review video of the live stream that just touches on the high notes. That's typically what determines it for me. So for games I'm invested in the story, I'm gonna watch the live stream in its entirety, and otherwise not as much. Now specifically going to live streams within Hoyoverse, because Hoyoverse, I think they sometimes do some unique things within their live streams that they do because of their production value of the game and the success of it. And what I mean by that is we've seen during their live streams, they've done live streams that actually aren't even like live stream concerts, like musical events.
Mm-hmm.
And so do those move the needle at all for you, like to go to those, even if they don't have any gameplay value in it and it's purely just like a live concert?
Uh, yeah, they don't move the needle for me. I think that they're neat. I'm glad that they do them. I think a lot of what Hoyo does with music is very impressive. They obviously invest quite a bit in that aspect of development. Um, but I have never attended any of the live stream concerts or anything like that. Again, I enjoy the music of the game. They don't move the needle at all for me, unfortunately. I might catch snippets afterwards or specific cuts of the live stream, but no, I've not sat down and listened to them. I'm horribly, horribly unsophisticated in that aspect.
I would say for the live stream concerts, if they're on at a time that I'm able to sit down and listen to them, then I'll catch them live. If I can't catch them live, I will actually usually pull them up and like have them on a second monitor when I'm working,
Mhm.
just to like listen to them because their music is usually pretty solid in Hoyoverse games. Like I go back to our first encounter in Star Rail when we got to the end of the colloquia in Eurilla
Yeah.
6.
Yeah, it's Urilla 4,
4.
one of the two. I can't remember
Eurilla,
which
I think
side
it's
the eye
Eurilla
is
6.
on.
I think it's Eurilla 6 because I think it's Jarvan 4 in League of Legends, and I would always flip those. But anyway, like I go back to that fight and hearing Wildfire for the first time,
Mhm.
and I was like, man, this is going really hard for a gacha game. I was like, that's really good music, really good boss music. And then when I saw it performed from a live setting, I was like, oh wow, this is awesome. Or then even the next boss fight that you did at the end of the during the Lua,
Um,
yeah, yes, her,
mhm,
with like kind of the choral tribal-esque music almost. Like
mhm.
their music is really good, and that's not even like counting like just the general like overworld music you get in Genshin when you're going through the different zones or you're fighting in different zones and the way it fades and transitions. So if I can't catch it live because of scheduling and when they're actually doing it, depending on what part of the world they're performing in, right?
Yeah.
I'll usually at least go listen to it later, find it on their channel on YouTube. Um, Now as far as
I
I'm
guess,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, really quickly to circle back to, I think that's part of the reason why I don't listen to it that much. Is my understanding is that most of them are done like Beijing time, so that's not exactly convenient for those of us on America time. There's about somewhere about a half a day difference depending on where you are at.
Yeah, it's a pretty big number.
Yeah, so it just doesn't quite line up well for me. But anyways,
Yeah, as far and you kind of talked that we talk about community and different events that go on because a lot of real life collaborations, right? We've talked about in-game collabs before, but as far as real life collaborations and hangouts and get-togethers, a lot of those happen, over in, the more focal points in China or in Japan or in Korea or wherever it may be. It doesn't necessarily make it stateside or, I think about the EU as well. It's like, man, they don't really even get very many, because sometimes at least the US does get, I've started to see a few more creep over. Like we had the McDonald's collaboration. There was one with, I think, a boba tea place that did like a maid cafe thing or something like that. So we're starting to see it creep more and more into the US, but that's not necessary. It's not to say it happens nearly as much as it does over there in the Eastern world. But would there be a draw for you to go to like an event, let's say, not to dox us or anything like that, but right, if there's something that happened in a major city near you that was a gathering of players or Star Rail players or whatever, just Hoyoverse fans, is that something that would appeal to you to go and attend?
See, now we're running into the anime convention problem, which is that I enjoy anime. I'm not apologetic about that. I enjoy anime. I don't enjoy anime fans. I unfortunately, I don't think I would go. I don't think I would be able to. There's a level of otaku-ness that's just like, you know what? I'm good. I'm good. I'm happy to be a fan in my house. I'm happy to talk with friends who are into it. But I'm not necessarily. Ironically, despite we're doing the podcast, I don't know that I would be willing to go to that sort of event unless I don't know. It would take some convincing. It would really
I would
depend
say,
on
is
the
it like
type.
the movies? You're not going to go alone, but you'll go with people. Like you would go with friends, but
I,
you wouldn't go alone.
yeah, I think I would go with friend. Like if I had other people if I had that safety net of like, okay, if we were to go together, then yeah, I'd be game for it. If I have other friends who are into it. If we were to go, I'd be game to do that because at least then you have somebody to, at absolute worst, like talk to. Um, Instead of just being alone in a sea of very passionate people, and I'm not throwing any shade. They are very passionate. I'm certain that they're all lovely people, but they can come on a little strong.
Yeah, I
So,
think for me, yeah, I mean, I would be interested in going. I would say I'm not big on like dressing up. So if like it's one of those things where it's like cosplay is required type thing, that would be tough for me because I don't like to dress up really for Halloween. I can appreciate good costumes, but just not for me type thing. So I would struggle in that regards. But in terms of going, I think I would be open to going just for you know, to see different things, to maybe get some memorabilia or stuff, because for me, you can always like maybe see about buying things online, but one of my big things is like I like to see it in person, and then I can really get a better idea of how it'll fit into the decor of my room or my desk or whatever it is. So I would definitely utilize that opportunity to go and perhaps pick up some merchandise. Um, but any type of collaboration event, like I took part in the McDonald's one because that was just really easy to do. Just go order these specific things, get your code, get your wind glider, and whatever it was. And then during, I think there was the boba tea one that was in various spots. There was one relatively near where I was. It wasn't too far of a drive per se, and I just ended up forgetting that day, like when it was happening. I had some things come up and it's just lost track of mind. But not because I didn't want to go.
yeah. I think the McDonald's style one is the ones that I'm more able to engage with, just because of where I live. It's sometimes difficult to go to these sort of events. They tend to be rather out of the way. Again, without dancing around that particular location. So yeah, it's something that's more nationwide. I remember that like Final Fantasy 14 had an event. I think it was in Japan. I could be wrong. that was like if you order a family-sized bucket of chicken and a bunch of other food and like eat it in the restaurant, you would get a code in order to get, I think it was a fat chocobo mount or something like that. You'd get like a
Mhm. That
mount of
sounds
some
about right. That
sort.
sounds like something that would be merchandise to give away.
Yeah. So you know, it ended up becoming a real life raid encounter where you have to sit there and eat it all in order to get the food, and you know, things like that. I could see potentially doing. Probably not eating a whole bunch of food. I'm trying to watch my waistline as I'm getting older, but you know, maybe I might take that risk. Uh, Things like that. Yeah. Again, just the more con based, more like get together meetup type stuff um, is more difficult to engage with. There, you know, and then there's also the online sort of things like you know the fan art events and so on. Um, you know, those are interesting. I enjoy perusing what ends up getting created for those, but I lack the artistic skill to really get involved with that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I was gonna say because sometimes with the live streams, I do like the sections where they highlight fan um, art or fan cosplay or just fan creation section, we'll call it. Um, you know, just to see what people are doing and what they're creating. There are some really good things, and I appreciate um, when those are highlighted by the developers. It's just, you see the love that a lot of fans do have for the game. Whether you know it be animated shorts they make. I really like to see drawings, and then I can, like I said, I don't like dressing up myself, but I can appreciate a good cosplay. If you really put in and touch on a lot of the small details on a character like that, that can go a long way to making. So that's really cool to see that, and then when the devs give that love as well. I think like I know Nikkei had a good section about that in their last anniversary live stream. They had a whole section dedicated to stuff like that. And even the devs kind of talked about like their favorite gifts that they've received from fans. Like even those are kind of cool stories to hear from as well.
Yeah, and and most importantly, I think is seeing the devs engaging with their community instead of kind of. I don't want to say want to have a sense of ownership, but you do want to have a sense that they know their community, they know who they're making their game for. Not to get too into the weeds or general gaming politics, whatever. But you know, them having a finger on the pulse is always nice to see.
And it's always good too to peek. I like being able to get some behind the scenes stuff and like peek behind the curtain. So like for me, going like to the music thing, like I like seeing kind of the musical stuff and how that's all put together and what the sound booth looks like and the recording, how that process plays out. Like I like stuff like that, just kind of how like how it's made in terms of for me music. Um, but I think even also there's a space for that too, and like character design and like seeing the different stages of how characters are designed. Now, obviously, they can't show what's they don't want to leak things going down in the future, but they can show us like initial
Well,
art design
or
art for characters and how it's evolved over time. I always like to see stuff like that as well.
yeah, and also trying to explain sort of the logic behind the character design. Like, okay, this is what we are aiming for. I'm not going to say they always hit the mark, but when they go like, oh, this is sort of the design, this is the character's personality as we envisioned it. This is how it influenced us and how we developed them. I think that's all neat. I do sometimes prefer if that stuff was better reflected in game. But again, I've got 3.0 on my mind, so that's next week's problem.
Well, I mean, as far as kind of live streams, yeah, like I said, overall, I'd say I watch, and pay attention to them more than not for sure, and highlighting, devs being humans moment, showing us that human nature side of things, and like you said, not being corporate robots. We appreciate, and then also, again, for me, it's just kind of seeing characters and the voice actors get involved in the projects like that are really cool. That kind of wraps up for me. And Steve, did you have any closing thoughts on live streams?
No, I think that was a good discussion, good coverage of my thoughts
Yes.
on live streams.
Good, just good general stuff on live streams. And because we do have other things we want to get to today, so I know we have a couple events to touch on. obviously we have some a new character to review, and then of course we have our news outside of the Genshin verse. But I do want to start with events, so we'll dive into those next. So looking at events this week, we do have a few events. We have one we want to talk about with Genshin, and one we talk about with Star Rail. So for those, Steve, I'll throw it over to you, whichever one you'd like to discuss first.
Okay. Well, let's start with Genshin, which is on the Trail of Behemoths. It is a combat event. Basically, you can fight a boss, and if you play at the hardest difficulty, you can make the fight more difficult, add additional challenges, add additional things you either need to achieve or effects to the boss to make it more difficult. You don't have to play at that difficulty. You can just play at, I believe, hard is the medium difficulty. Play at that. You'll get all the points you need. You'll get your, they're not Stellar J's, they're Primos. You'll get Primos for that, and then everything above. If you want to go for a challenge, you can, but if you just want to play on hard and be done with it, that's perfectly fine. It is timed. By the time this goes live, I believe all of the different stages will be available. But if you were somehow listening to us in the past, you would have to wait for it to fully unlock. The other event is Honkai Star Rail, the Ilia travel log. This one's a fairly easy event. Basically, you just have to go around and experience the new patch. You should, assuming that you are thoroughly exploring and interacting with the new 3.0 landscape and the new 3.0 world, get it fairly easily. As of recording, I already have completed the entire event. It was very straightforward. I was able to do it before I even finished the story mode. So it's good fun. It helps get you introduced to the new setting, new world, and gives you a nice chunk of nice chunk of Stellar Jade. There we go. For that, but let's toss it back over to you, Dave, for the Herta.
Yeah, because speaking of getting Stellar Jades, yeah, definitely been doing some polls, and we'll be having polls for characters upcoming. We'll discuss more upcoming characters, next week with our 3.0 review. But as far as new characters this week, we do have the Herta in Star Rail that dropped this week. So I did just want to give a brief rundown for her, for those that were curious or interested in pulling on her, especially kind of with what's around the corner. So just to kind of give you guys some insight, the Herta, different from Herta. The Herta is of the ice element. She is on the path of erudition, and I really like the character design. They're getting me again, kind of with the purple blue type look. I'm a sucker for those. And then she's basically a magical witch girl, which super adorable. As far as the build for her, light cones and as such, so looking at the numbers and calculations, assuming you're fighting 3 targets, so if you're using her in pure fiction or a multi-enemy boss type situation, obviously her signature light cone is going to be the best option for her. But if you are free to play or on a budget and looking to conserve because of upcoming characters, or maybe you went ham on Sunday's banner that just ended, right, or Fugue, you do have some other options that you can substitute in instead of pulling for her signature banner. Her next best option is technically not free to play. It is today is another peaceful day, which is the battle pass erudition light cone. So if you are somebody that purchases the monthly battle pass, you can select today as another peaceful day. You get that to S5 after so many choosings of it, and that would be her second best option. But if you are on a budget with your Stellar Jades, you are not buying the battle pass. The next best option, which you probably have one by now, would be Himiko's light cone, Night on the Milky Way. If you have not lost a 50-50 and pulled this, it is available in the store for, I think it's 600 of the whatever the material is that you get for after pulling currency, whatever those crystals are called afterwards, right?
I think it's stellar
Um,
dust, some dust. I can't
yeah,
remember.
yeah, dust. Certainly, yeah, that would make sense. So yeah, for I think for 600 dust, you can purchase a Night on the Milky Way. So if you weren't aware of that, you can go to your store, and it's in the store with a bunch of other 5-star light cones for other standard banner characters. This is the same uh, um, currency that you can spend 20 of it on for one pull. If you would rather use it on pulls. But for me, I tend to save it up for instances like this, so I can just purchase a 5-star light cone. So that's going to be her technically third best option, but the best quote unquote free to play option. If you are going to be needing to go further down the list, just to go in order, Jing Yuan's signature light cone before dawn is the fourth best option, and then the true free to play best option is Genius's Rose, which is the 4-star light cone. Um, that you can acquire just from random warps. It is the one where it increases the wearer's attack, and whenever the wearer defeats an enemy, increases the crit damage by X percentage for 3 turns, with percentages increasing first super in. So that's the light cone breakdown. I think top 5 is enough, especially considering the 5th option is the true free-to-play option. But looking at the relic sets, again, just to stress, all calculations going to be based on if she's fighting 3 or more units. Her best relic set is going to be one of the newer relic sets, the Scholar Lost in Erudition. Her path is in the name, so naturally I think it's going to be a good fit. This is going to be one where the 2-piece set is going to increase her crit rate by 8%, and then the 4-piece set increases damage dealt by skill and ultimate by 20%, and then after using your using your ultimate, you increase damage dealt by your next skill by 25%. This is gonna be like ideal for your rotation with the Herta, since the Herta's rotation is gonna be use your skill, use your ultimate, which then pulls her forward to immediately take another turn, and you use an empowered skill, so an empowered E, to use that blast, which this set takes full advantage of. She is going to be a little skill point hungry, something that kind of is offset by her light cone. So if that is something you're a little nervous about, just something to consider. It's not the end of the world if you can't get her signature light cone or you're not pulling for it. There are other ways. But just know that she is a little skill point hungry. As far as her planar set, Izumo, Gensei, and Takama Divine Realm is going to be her best option. This is going to be the one where it increases the attack by 12%, and upon entering battle, if at least one other ally, follows the same path as the wearer, so erudition, then the wearer's crit rate increases by 12%. We're going to get into team comps in a minute, but that'll be her best option. This is also the same set that Acheron uses as well. So if you farm for Acheron, you may have some leftover pieces for the Herta. If you don't have Azuma Gensei, you can also substitute in as a second option Rudolent Arena. And a third option would be the Glamoth set if you have a bunch of those set over. Because I know there were a lot of units that took the Glamoth set, so you may have a bunch of that left over. Though with the Glamoth set, please note 135 speed is going to be the recommended speed, so at least be at that threshold. As far as the best stats, surprise, she's a DPS, so it's going to be a pretty standard DPS build. You're looking at a body, crit rate, and then secondary crit damage, feet, speed, or attack percentage, depending on how your speed, depending on what kind of team comp you're using, or how you're hitting those breakpoints. Because there is another build with another set where you actually don't stack speed on her, in which case the attack boots would be what you go with. But from numbers I'm seeing and testing I'm looking at, this is the more optimal build with the Erudition set. The planar sphere, ice damage, and then attack percentage would be there, and then link rope, attack percentage, and then energy regen rate would be kind of the two main stats to look for. Substats, of course, speed until you hit the break point if you're not doing the intentionally slow speed build, and then crit rate, crit damage, and attack percentage, prioritizing in that order for the rest. As far as teams go, again, we don't have MOC data. We don't have pure fiction data or anything like that for her. So all of this is purely based off of beta testing and theory crafters. So for kind of the premium team, you're looking at the Herta, Jade as your two DPS users. You have an amplifier or a buffer in terms of either Sunday or Robin, and then your sustain or your healer type character in Aventurine or Lingsha would be your options there. If you didn't pull all those 5 stars on all those banners, you do have some free to play options available as well. Because you can look at the Herta and pair her with either Herta, normal Herta, or you could even do Serval. I've seen as well. And then for the buffer type, you have Remembrance Trailblazer, which is going to be the new path that's come here in 3.0. So you can use Remembrance Trailblazer with this, or you can use Pela. And then for your sustain, you have Gallagher. So that's going to be the more free to play friendly option as far as team comps go. As always, we'll be looking forward to seeing how she performs in this round's MOC, so we can get some numbers and see how that all looks. But everything is pointing to she's pretty good. All the numbers, everything's saying she's pointing to be pretty good. So if you do like the aesthetic, she fits into your team comp, by all means, go for it. If you are a meta chaser, this might be one that you want to go for. But I'm not here to tell you who to pull for and who not to. Pull to your heart's content with whom you want. But with that, Herta for me, I ended up pulling for. I lost my 50-50. I now have an E2 Japard array. If we were back in 1.0, I would be stoked about that. But we have come a long way since 1.0. But I have since grinded out some things and earned enough currency to then get her. So I do have her and have been having some fun playing with her in MOC and the such. So really enjoyed the play style and the character herself. But Steve, what about you? Are you skipping this one and for upcoming, Remembrance characters, or did you give the Herta a pull?
Oh no, I pulled for the Herta for Big Herta as she goes in China. I pulled for her. I also failed my 50-50 for a ice standard bander character. And she ended up coming home and in 40 pulls after that.
It's not named just an ice standard banner character.
Look, we don't like to talk about him.
Oh, we don't talk about him?
We don't talk about him.
I think we all know who you're talking about then.
I'm sure there's a lot of educated guesses. But, a male ice standard banner character was what I received instead of the Herta. I was not disappointed at all or crushed by that. But I did get her in 40 pulls after that. I did also...
Early in the 50-50, okay.
Yeah, I did also splurge a bit and go for her light cone. Just because I did want... Her SP problems aren't super bad, but... I preferred to not have to worry about that. And a light cone is fairly within reach based off of the budget I have. Now, admittedly, what this does mean is that I might have to swipe in order to get a Galea. Maybe. But I do have quite a bit of premium currency saved up from basically at this point 2-3 years. We're on year 2 of Battle Pass currency. They give you the paid currency. They give you 300 of it each month. And I have never spent it. I just sit on it. So I have quite a bit of that saved up that I might dip into in order to get a Galea.
Okay. All right. Well, we're excited about Herta. Except for me, a bunch of characters on the horizon that we're going to dip into talking about more next week as we review our 3.0 quest adventures. So we do want to thank you guys for joining us with that. As far as news outside of Hoyoverse, a couple things I wanted to touch on real quick. So we got a couple notes. So one, Brown Dust 2, I know we mentioned them earlier today, talking about their live streams, but they did release kind of their next wave of events and such. So they are going with kind of a hot spring spa onsen type theme. So with that, they released Ventana's Hot Springs or Onsen outfit, which just dropped this past week. So if you do play that game, she actually, this new skill that she has with this costume helps really enable her kit, really gives her a buff. She's one of the strongest light damage dealers for single target purposes. And this outfit will actually, that skill that you get with the outfit really helps kind of bring her a repertoire there up a notch. So go ahead and if you are interested, you can pull on that. I believe 3 copies of it is what I'm reading to really get it going. It's serviceable at no copies, but if you get it to +3, I think that's where it really will take off per some theory crafters. And if you do play Brown Dust 2, you know that getting 3 copies is a lot easier than getting 3 copies in Genshin, unless you're a certain ice swordsman on a losing of 50-50 for somebody. Other news, Limbus Company, they just had their 7.5 event trailer drop, as well as another Eden. That's a blast from the past for me. Another Eden, their global 6-year anniversary trailer just came out, and their live stream will be happening after this recording, it's happening after this, but after we posted this, it will have happened. So I don't have any information on it for you at this time, but you can always check it out as that will have happened once this goes out. So another Eden, blast from the past, 6-year anniversary trailer. Another trailer dropped for Snowbreak 2.5. Their version trailer, Hearts of Harmony, dropped. So if you are interested in Snowbreak, they do have another new event coming out here for next week. And then in other games I used to play that are still kind of on my radar, Counterside, they announced that they are doing a collaboration with Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? So if you're familiar with any of those IPs, those two are collabing for Counterside. Just as a friendly reminder, they do have a Steam client, so you can play it through Steam if you're not trying to play that on mobile, or if you were like me this past week and had to make some tough decisions on what mobile games you could keep on your phone due to storage space issues. Yeah, I couldn't even do an Apple update because I had not enough storage. So decisions had to be made. Maybe some emulators were downloaded and other games were moved. So that's going to do it for us this week. We want to thank you guys for joining us. Let us know what your thoughts are on developer live streams. Maybe you guys, there's something about them that appeals to you that we didn't talk about today, or maybe there's something you just can't stand when it comes to live streams. If you did enjoy the episode, you'd like to support the show, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the channel. You can email us at brohoyopod@gmail.com with questions or suggestions for the show, or the best way to get in touch with us is to come over and join our Discord. We have a link down in the description, so be sure to join us over there for news, gaming nights, content notifications, or codes from those live streams if you can't catch them live. Join us next week when we discuss the 3.0 Honkai Star Rail story quest and characters. But until then, keep gaming.
We made a choice, go fight against your fate.